Hey guys, how's it going? It's Chris here, and we are doing a tutorial on the TCG. Today we're going to be looking at fighter cards and how they work. So, basically, a fighter card is your quote-unquote deck master. It is a card that goes right here in the fighter zone at the start of the game before anything else even happens, and it does not leave that zone. It does not get flipped face down. This card is glued to the field. And same thing with your opponent. They'll have one in that zone. You guys are facing each other off. We're going to fight each other. So to start off with the card layout, we have the center white box at the top, which is the character's name and a designator. Sometimes character will have a designator, sometimes not. Because for some characters, I will make a second version of them based on in the book series. If they appear in multiple times across like the timeline and stuff, you see them in different stages of the characters. So this one right here, Alice, Patient Wrath, this would be Book 1, Alice. And so you get stats, you get effects, and whatever have you at the time of who they were during that appearance. So we have in the top left corner, this blue box, we have 1800. This is the character's life. This is their health total, their life points in Yu-Gi-Oh! These are their hit points, whatever you want to call it, that is their life. When this reaches 0, you're dead, you lose. On the opposite side, in the top right corner, we have this 150 right here, and this is their combat power, or abbreviated to CP. I will say that both of these stats right here are character dependent, so not every character has 1800, not every character has 150. Usually the characters all have their own unique stat lines and bonuses, not necessarily bonuses, but like different play styles based on their life total. If they have a high life total, then they might not do as much in their effects. If they have a lower life total, they might have some unique effects that give them, that kind of balances the playing field kind of thing. Down here in between the character image and this text box is species. You have species, demon, class, tuffle. These are just character designators that don't apply in moment-to-moment gameplay unless a card says so, which typically these have to deal with restrictions for different card types. So like certain action cards can only be used by demon characters or only be used by tuffle characters or whatever have you. So this is just additional stuff. Now we have the big box of text right here, which is your character's effects. Now, obviously, when it comes to the fighter, they're on the field, so these effects are basically always in play, but you just have to go by what the text says. So the passive means that these are always active, and typically these are things that will happen during every turn, at the end of every turn, whatever. So this says when you set the card Kim Avery. So when Kim Avery, another character card, not a fighter, an ally card, we'll get to that in a different video, is set to the field, this effect triggers. Then you can add nothing, which is in these abbreviations, so you know that that is another ally card or another card in your deck, from your deck to your hand. Then you have, this is a turn passive during the idle phase. If you control 3 action physical cards specifically on cooldown, you can set all 3 of them and draw 1 card for each. So that's an optional thing you can do. So this one right here is actually a non-optional effect. This is mandatory. So if you do have 3 action physical cards on cooldown, send all. It doesn't say you can send, it just says send all. So when you have 3 during the idle phase, they all get sent to the discard zone. So this is kind of meant to balance for her specifically because she is a physical attacker with action cards. If you overextend and attack too much during a turn, you have everything on cooldown, you send them all away, you lose those cards, but you do get to draw cards and you do clear your field for the next turn. But the whole point of action cards is that they recycle. So if they all get sent to the discard zone, if you overextend and have too many, then you do gain 3 cards back, but you lose 3 cards in the deck total. Also, during the idle phase, if you do control 2 or more ally cards, you gain 30 life. So a small passive of a round number, so it's easy enough to add to your life. Now you have another ability which is obviously not labeled as passive. This is your activatable effect, Claw Transference. So this is one that you declare. I activate this in response. Sometimes you have it like, oh, once per turn or twice per turn, once per game. It'll have that stipulation. And then during your main phases, you can choose to activate it. But this one is a stipulation of when your opponent activates a counter card in response to your physical attack, you can choose to activate Claw Transference, and you will inflict strength after initial damage calculation. So that's the text body. Of course, pretty easy to understand. Passives are always active. Your secondary ability or your primary ability, whichever way you want to look at it, is one you choose to activate. Sometimes they do trigger on their own, but go by what the text says. Which actually, going by what the text says, this one would activate automatically. I'll retract that. This one activates automatically. Now you have this bottom text box at the end. Okay, this is STR is strength, DEF is defense, POW is power, STA is stamina, MND is mind. And these always add up to equal your character's combat power. So, one thing to note is whenever one of these stat points changes, if power goes to 32, then your combat power is instantly and immediately reflected upon that because it is the active sum of your stat points. So, power goes up to 32, goes up to 152. Power goes up to 31, stamina goes down to 32, then, it changes as you go. So, it's something you got to keep track of. I have adjusted cards to make it so your stat points aren't fluctuating constantly. A lot of times now, if you gain stat points, you don't. You gain them permanently instead of them being temporary gains. You're not constantly changing stuff on the field. I also want to say, I didn't say it at the beginning, but fighter cards are designated by this exact purple border. And that's pretty much how fighter cards work. When it comes to like how this character attacks, you do have two base attacks you can inflict per turn, which is in the rules. You read all that, but I'll go over it real quick. You have your strength and your power, which is a physical and magic attack, respectively. And you can declare one base attack per turn or as many action cards as you have on cooldown. So basically, your fighter attacks either itself once for small damage or by using action cards over here, and that's your character's combined interaction. And your character is defended, it protects itself by counter cards. And again, we will get into that counter cards and action cards in their own specific videos. But for now, that is how fighter cards work in general. If you have any questions, comment down below so I can make adjustments. And the rules are available on my website, vengeancebooks.com. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.